working with Ryan, working on something as radical and cool as the Black Panther, and then playing a special kind of love interest and just changing the nature of that role. All those things were the reasons I said hell.
Yeah.
And Danai, for you?
Yeah, I also was not familiar at all with the comic book, and hadn't watched a ton of Marvel movies, quite honestly. But it was interesting. It was actually the day that my play Eclipsed opened on Broadway with Lupita starring in it, and yeah, and I was walking out to the car, actually leaving the theater. And my manager's like, so we have this offer from Marvel, Black Panther. I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, what? And I was just so confused. I couldn't get my brain around it. And then about like a month later, I was back in LA. It was just like crazy, busy. And I came to LA, and then I finally got to sit down with Ryan. And I loved Ryan, and I was always really, I never met him, but I was always deeply proud of him for what he'd accomplished and at such a young age. And a movie I was in called Mother of George was at Sundance at the same time as Fruitvale. So I'd spent some time on panels with Michael, but I never got around to actually meeting Ryan. But I just had so much pride in him. Like, he was just this young man who had really navigated his own path and decided to tell an important story on his own, and it had blown up. And then with Creed, I was just really in admiration of him. So I was really like, well, I definitely want to know what he's up to and what this is about. So, and I sat down with him, and I mean, I'm a playwright who writes from the African perspective. So, like, of course, I'm like, what you up to, and he was so brilliant in how he described this world and how he was going to contextualize it, and the research he'd done. He'd spent time in South Africa and Kenya with Lupita's family, and he really had a really stunning template in his perspective, and also a really well planned narrative. And the way he described my character, like, you can hear a lot of things about people wanting to tell stories from perspective, or like women's stories from Black women, but you're like, okay, what's my story? You know what I mean? And the way he navigated around how my character was going to be a part of it, and her identity as this guardian of this nation and of the king of a nation that had never been colonized also was very enriching to me, because I grew up in a country that had just come out of colonization when I moved there at age 5. In Zimbabwe. So the idea of being a part of a nation that realized itself without that assault being a part of its history was very resonant for me. The idea that she had, complexity around, even her relationships and things like that. Like, it wasn't like this, she's just this one type of chick. And that was really important to me. That's always important to me. So it was very, and then he just talked about, like, the music he was gonna, like, there was just so many beautiful things he had going on. He was, like, introducing me to, like, like things like the fusion of this South African artist. I'm really into South African house. And she's into, like, Nigerian high life, and I'm South African house. That's like our teams. You know what I mean? Like with Michael and Ryan, it's like Golden State and the Knicks, and for me and her, it's like high life and South African house. But, like, he was like, this is awesome stuff. Like, have you heard this? And it's stuff like where he was fusing African and African American music and introduced me to some music like that. And I was like, wow, I just love what he's up to, and he's already a brilliant filmmaker. So I walked out of there, and I couldn't remember where I'd parked. And that's always a good sign, because I was in this little giddy place like a little kid. I was so excited. So yeah, that's how it came about for me.
And I know that you guys go way back, even before Eclipse, don't you? You've known each other a while. Did you at any point sort of talk to each other about, like, oh my gosh, we get to work together?
No, we didn't. It wasn't until Ryan came to see Eclipse. And was in my dressing room, like, visiting after he'd seen the film, and then that's when it was like, wait a minute, are you like, wait, what? Oh, what? Oh, cool. Yeah.
Both, like, keeping the secret so well.
Yeah, they said
we kept it from each other. We see each other every day.
Yeah.
But how thrilling was that to know that you were going to get to collaborate with a friend?
Oh, it was so great, because as much as I've known Danai a long time, I've never worked with her as an actor. I mean, I've worked with her as writer, actor, that relationship and stuff, but we've never been actors together. So this was the first experience of that, and it really, working on this film, I think really took our friendship to a new level. I mean, she was already a person that I deeply admired and respected, and even was intimidated by.
You know.
and stuff, and then in this, we were thrown into this film together, and we realized how much we have in common, like, the way we see the world, the way we want to, where we want the world to go, kind of thing, how we tell stories, what's most important to us. And what Ryan provided was an environment where we could come to the table and offer up, our ideas, and really help to take the story to another level. And so we found a real sisterhood in that, and grew even closer than we had been before.
I feel like that chemistry shows on screen too. Actually, one of my favorite scenes, well, I love the casino scene that you guys have together, but and the car, of course.
That was fun. That was South African House prevailed, by the way. Got us through that.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But when you come to her and you expect her to leave with you guys, and you say that you have to stay, it's such a powerful moment, and I feel like it probably couldn't have hurt your chemistry to have that background together.
Yeah, and there's a trust as well. We also have the exact same core acting teacher.
You're kidding.
Yeah. Well, he was at Tisch, then Yale stole him.
He just went to better pastors.
Yeah. He created a better pastor for Anyway, look, that's our other team thing. But it was. So we have there's an ease of how we understand how to get to the core of the work, and so it's really enjoyable to work together. Not only as we have so many just direct parallel beliefs in the world and our values and what we're trying to do in the world and what we want to see of the world, but then we also, our craft has a similarity in terms of how we address it. So there's a great trust,
right?
That
and we're both very strong-minded, and so we challenge each other as well. So we're not always in agreement, but because we respect each other's perspective, we hear each other out, and I think that makes us stronger, to be able to do that, really just be honest and, upfront and just real with each other.
So you both sort of signed on before you even saw like a finished script. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, the movie is called Black Panther, and all of the male actors are wonderful, but it is so rare to see a script or a movie that has one amazing, smart, kick-ass woman, let alone 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4. What was it like when you finally read that script and you saw like all of these fully fleshed out, complex female characters?
Danai.
It was fantastic, and there were some things that were like really, really interesting to me, like the idea of her throwing off her wig, and everyone always asks me, they're like, did you come up with that? And I'm like, I came up with a couple things, but I didn't come up with that. Like, that was there from day one. And, I just love that about Ryan, that he was, thinking in so many ways, because there's so many things that addresses, that one gesture in terms of aesthetics, and a woman who's both fierce and feminine in her own way. There were just so many ways that, things that he came up with that were just so brilliant. But the other thing that he did that's brilliant about Ryan is that I was just saying this about him yesterday, he's such a true artist because he's such a true collaborator, which is that, and he said this, he said, I didn't take on actors who would just learn their lines. And he wanted us to come to the table and collaborate. And because he is, and he's a self-described feminist, and I see that in him every day, it's a beautiful thing. He's also very open to learning the female perspective, which is a very powerful component of being a man and being a feminist man. A man who's a feminist is that you're learning that this is a perspective I want to learn more about, and I'm open to hearing the female perspective help me. So we were able to do that. He was very open and respectful to our thoughts, and also so it allowed us to feel not only free to really explore our characters, but also very valued as members of the creation of this thing. And so we left it, and we see it, and we feel, we feel an ownership, and that doesn't always happen. The beauty is he represents something I think is very much part of the future of how we create films as well, which is that level of collaboration and openness is something that is to be embraced. There's no need for top-downness all the time, and so we really got a beautiful experience with him as a result of that, the way he's already wired.
Yeah, and he had said in that initial conversation, and he continues to say that he wanted to have women in this film that reflect the kind of women that he grew up with, his mother, his aunt, his grandmother, those people. And those people are complex and layered and powerful in different ways. And so that's what you see. And we only achieved this because that was his intention.
Mm-hmm.
And he remained true to that intention throughout. So it was his intention, and then he really did call us to the table to help him get there in the places where he didn't know how, because he'd given us the license to contribute. We were able to do that in very effective, constructive ways. So yeah, this really does feel like our film.
Yeah. For a movie that is so darn entertaining, did you have any idea how timely it would be? I mean, when it came out, I don't know if you were thinking about, when you were making it, these messages about, let's build bridges instead of walls, sort of, and just all these important themes that run through the film. I'm sure you knew they were there, but did you have any idea it would be so relevant when it came out?
I mean, I think art, the good art, speaks to a future before it is present.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, Ryan wrote that thing in a totally different political climate and stuff like that. And so when we were reading it, I mean, I think it was, we were in boot camp in November, December, when America was shifting rather dramatically. And you're looking at this script, and it's like, my Lord, this script looks like it was written today. And he'd been writing it for, over a year or 2 years, And so I think that's the gift of the artist, that you tap into things before it is time for them to be considered, and then you unleash it at exactly the right moment.
Yeah,
because you see the seeds.
Yeah.
You can see what's happening, and it's already, when you're an artist who's meant to tell a story, the burden on your heart is to bring those things to the fore. Even though the best place I feel you can be as a creator of a piece of work is you're kind of like, I'm a vessel for something, and it's taking me places I didn't expect. And that was, that's the power of what I think we witnessed Ryan do, was he allowed it to take to those places, and to Marvel and Disney's credit, they allowed him to do that. And so we got to explore very, very relevant themes in a very timely moment.
You mentioned boot camp, and I would love to do Black Panther boot camp, by the way. Were you all in it together? Like, did Michael and Chadwick go there too? That probably really helped build this ensemble.
Yeah, it was. We were together 6 weeks before we started filming, all in Atlanta, and we all had our physical training stuff. We all had to, get ripped, get in shape and stuff, and we would have sessions together. Well, warm-ups would be together, and then we'd break off and do our various techniques. The Dora Milaje would do their thing. I would branch off and do my thing. Letitia, all of us were there. Winston, and all of us who needed to
Chadwick,
of course, Chadwick and Michael. And then during that time, it was also workshopping the script. So we would have meetings with Ryan in groups. So like the scenes, we would get together in the scenes that we were in. It was called rehearsal, workshop, and really just go through the scenes and talk it out and argue, because this movie is really, the argument of this movie runs through it. We never let go. What is the future of Wakanda gonna be? Are we gonna keep our borders shut, or are we gonna open them and everybody has a position, right? And like Nakia and Killmonger have the same position, they just have, it's a different means to the same end, that kind of thing. So we really needed, and that was really scary for me, because when I read the script, I went to Ryan, I was like, Ryan, but I really agreed with Killmonger. How are we gonna have a movie where the villain has such a strong point and, you know, is so empathetic, you know, and he was never afraid of that. I was terrified. I was like, Jesus, like, how do we get people to root for the Black Panther? So we really needed in those sessions to really get down to the heart of the matter, to make sure that we were telling this, you know, kind of robust story, that we had every single corner being pulled so that it was tight, and so that we could really get the message across what this movie was trying to say. And that was the time that we did that.
I want to take a couple quick questions from the audience. If you have one, just raise your hand. It's right there.